Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel, and this is your tip of the week. I'm going to talk about choosing colors and how you can really make your project, whatever you're working on, look extra special. And in this one I used 2 colors only. So I have a solid and then a print. And then even in my binding I have the white and the blue, and I'll go over this in a little while, what this is. So you can make a quilt or a table runner or anything that you're making just using 2 colors. So what this is the first block is the print on the inside in the middle and then a solid border around it. Then I swapped the colors and did just the opposite here. So every other block is the opposite of each other. So this really stands out. It looks very, very pretty when you select the right colors. Make sure that whatever color is in your print matches your solid really well. If it clashes, it's not going to quite have the look that you want. Now, the binding here. This binding is called flange binding. Now your standard binding is just one piece of fabric cut in a long strip, folded in half, stitched on first on the back side, fold over to the front, and stitch down. On flange binding, it's 2 pieces of fabric stitched together. The white fabric, you only see just a little bit of it, but when it's cut, it's actually wider than this blue here. So when you fold it in half, the white shows, and you still stitch it on from the back and fold it over to the front, and then you stitch right down in that seam right there. Now, if you want more detailed information on either making this table runner, and you can also turn it into a quilt, or how to make the flange quilt binding, I will have links below your YouTube screen in the description section. This is a decorative pillow that I made, and it was primarily meant to be used as a lumbar support pillow. So I didn't put as much stuffing in it. It has just a little bit, just enough to make my low back feel comfortable when I'm sitting in a chair. But that's not the main focus of this. What I want to bring out is that you can get all types of fringe to put on the edge of your pillows or whatever type of decorative decor you're making. And it's sewn into the seam. So when you're layering your fabrics, the front and back together, it's being stitched in that seam. The other thing I want to focus on is this piping right here. Piping is another way of making your pillows look a little more decorative, a little more special. But this piping here was made using fabric that was cut on the straight grain. That's because I was not going to go around a curved corner. So when you're cutting fabrics out to make your own piping, first understand where it's going to be placed. So if it's going to be straight grain, you just cut strips up and down or side to side on your fabric. But if it's going to go around a corner, you need to cut it on the bias of your fabric. Here is an example of straight grain, and then I'll show you bias in a moment. So straight grain, I recommend when you're going to cut strips out to make your piping, is that you keep your fabric folded in half with your selvage edges together. Make sure this edge is straight. And then you go over however many inches you need to cover your piping. And you would cut it this way. So this is straight grain. In other words, up and down or side to side. Now, this is how you would cut on the bias of your fabric. In other words, you're going at an angle. I usually unfold my fabric with the selvages out on opposite sides like this. Then on your rulers, these quilting acrylic rulers, there's all these different lines. And the one that I use for cutting on the bias is the 45-degree line. So how I do that is I place my 45-degree line on the selvage edge of my fabric. And you can cut it any width you want. Remember, it all depends on what size of piping you have. So you would go ahead and make a cut, go over however many inches that you want it to be, keeping that 45-degree line on the bottom edge, and do your cuts. You would keep doing that till you have enough strips. Where can you get piping? You can at some Walmart stores. They will carry this size right here. Not all Walmarts carry sewing and craft items. I buy a lot from Joann Fabrics and Crafts. Now they have a variety of sizes there. So this kind of gives you an idea of what's available out there. When you're working with the cording, you want to make sure you always put tape where you want to cut. Otherwise, it's going to quickly unravel. So you always leave a piece of tape down there and then cut right through the middle of your tape so that either end does not begin to unravel. When you're cutting your fabric, you want to cut the fabric wide enough so that when it folds over, there's a little bit of a seam allowance there that you will be able to set into your seams. On this one here, which is pretty narrow, I forget the width of it, but it's the skinniest one you're going to find in Joann's or at Walmart. So I've cut this about 1 1/4 inches wide, and I'm going to just fold it over, bring the two raw edges together. Then you want to use your zipper foot, and you want to move your needle closest to where the cording is. And then you would just stitch down all the way to the end. So here is a pillow with the piping that was cut on the bias and going around a curve, because it's going to bend a lot easier. One thing that I like to do when I'm putting it on the curve is I will slightly round my corners a little bit. The other thing that I do is when I am laying it down on the little seam of the piping, that little extra fabric, I will do little clips to help the fabric bend even more. Now, this is a quilt block that I made for this pillow, and a viewer has asked me to do a tutorial on this, and I am working on it, and I will show you a way of making a quilt block that's just plain fabric, and then also if you want to put anything special in the middle. So when I make quilt blocks, sometimes I will put my cross stitch in this or other little hand sewing that I like to do, embroidery, needlepoint, whatever it is you're making. So you can enhance your hand stitchery with putting it in a quilt block, and I made a little wall hanging out of this. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tip of the week and that you've learned something new. If you're interested in any of these projects or other sewing tutorials, please scroll down to the description section. So as you're scrolling, you're going to see the word more. Click on that word and it will expand open and you will see a variety of links appearing. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and make sure you check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl, this is Manny, and this is Scotty. See you next time.